Here are my top 4 productivity hacks that I used to write 9 books, give a TEDx talk, and start 3 businesses from scratch. I'm gonna go through these one by one, and then I'm gonna teach you how to use them to your advantage so you could get a lot of things done as fast as you can with as little effort as possible. Number 1 is batching. Number 2, time boxing. Number 3, avoiding multitasking. Number 4 is doing the hardest thing first. I have a bonus one. I told you 4. I got a 5th one. Eliminating distraction. So let's go over one of these one by one and we'll take it from there. If you've never watched any of these, my name is Beruz Molmeni. I'm the CEO and founder here at entrepreneurcorner.com, also CEO and founder at BMO and SortSmart. I'm joined with our Director of Consulting at BMO, Ranza Nisan. So let's go at number 1. So I told you there was 4, but there was a bonus one, so there's actually 5. 1, batch similar activities in such that you're doing this sort of similar activities in the same amount of allocated time, whether within the same day or different days of the week. Raza, can you give us some examples of, like, I'm hoping this has saved your life as much as it has mine.
No, 100%, 100%. Especially with the multitude of projects that we have going on, and obviously the team and everything else that we kind of manage. This has become the norm for me. This was something that was very hard to adjust to as someone that really likes to dip my hands in multiple things. I had to really adjust to this, and I think Bruce, you helped me a lot with that earlier on. But it's essentially saying, hey, your focus is going to be a lot better. The output is going to be a lot better if the skills that are required are done at the same time. So essentially for, myself, a lot of that is, depending on the projects that I'm working on. If I'm working on any given project, I'm going to group those together and I'm going to complete those. If I'm doing administrative things, I'm going to do those tasks together and complete those. And it ties into some of the other things you're going to say in terms of like big rocks and little rocks. So I'm going to hold off on that. But time batching is the best thing that you can do, especially if you work remote and you're trying to be autonomous and you're trying to self-manage and also make sure that productivity increases and results increase at the same time.
And it's a huge deal if you're a manager or managerial position and above, and if you're the CEO, founder, and you're like, you got a million things to do. If you don't do this, like, it's not going to work. The advantage of this, and this is not BS, this is based on a lot of research that's been done to determine the quality of output when someone's multitasking versus when they're focused at one thing at a time. That's why we're going to talk about multitasking in a bit and how to avoid that. That's why batching is almost like that tip about multitasking. Because, for example, they did a study where they compared people who were driving and talking on their phone with people who were drunk and not talking on the phone and driving. Guess what? They performed equally terrible. It's like as bad. People don't realize that. Like, if you're driving and texting, you're as bad as a drunk person driving.
Yeah.
This could apply to anything else. Like now, okay, so let's say you're like, okay, I got to figure out our sales funnel. Like, imagine you're the CEO, sales funnel, and every 10 seconds you're answering emails, answering your phone. You're going to create a sales funnel as if you were drunk. That's how good your business is going to do. Whereas if you do this in a focus thing, so now driving, they have done this experiment in like weird contexts, not necessarily for businesses. They have done a few as well. But my sort of a thing that I want to teach is you have projects you want to do. You have life goals you want to take care of. in that context, that's a little bit different from like driving or riding a bike or blah, blah, it's a little bit different. So let's say you want to write a book. You're more likely to do well if you've batched a good 5 hours of your time once a week than to do 1 hour every day of the week. Why? Two reasons. If you everything else is clear on your plate and your mind for a longer period of time, you have more chance, because your brain usually takes about 30 minutes just to warm up, figure out what was I doing, what am I doing now, plan itself, blah, blah, like 30 minutes is gone when you start something anyway. So that's 30 minutes. So if you're doing things at 1 hour chunks, you're already wasting time, unless it's like answering your text doesn't require you to think. That's one reason. The second reason is that when you have enough time, I usually like a good 5 hours if it's like a very huge project, and just do it once a week than to do that, because you get to go very deep into it, get enough done, and already know what you should do the next week. So your brain in the background is already working how to solve the next problem already. The next time you get on it, you're like, oh man, this is already solved. Very quickly gets done. If you do that once, 1 hour every day and still 5 hours, it's not the same quality. You could try it just because of the warm up your brain needs. It just doesn't work. And then you will end it way too soon. As soon as it's gotten into flow state, you're gonna end the task. So that's why it's not good. So let's go to the other.
I will add
Yeah.
to that.
Go ahead.
And you've told me this multiple times, is anticipate delays. So have a healthy time for your batching. I used to be very strict with my batching, thinking, oh, this can get done in an hour, not realizing that there could be issues and new ideas that I could create during that time that will prolong the process. So give yourself a healthy time for that batching. So if it does cut into other things, it's a bit more forgiving in your schedule.
And we'll explain exactly how to organize different tasks so that the most important gets done. Obviously, you're going to do the first one, the most important one first. But let's go to time boxing. This one is something that I have not done a lot with my own teams. I realize I actually do this, but I have never taught. So my teams, it's not in our sort of a thing but it does help. I just realized I actually do this naturally. And then I realized it has a name. Like, you could go look it up, time boxing. So what does that mean? For your 2 or 3, I would choose, depending on how intense the activity is, max 1, 2, 3 maximum of like really intense brain heavy activities per day. The rest is just, then it's like, I don't know, chilling with your family, texting, social media, blah, blah, because that's it. Your brain is done at. It's fried after a few hours. Most people are. Time boxing, when you are doing those important activities, will tell you that, hey, I have to get this done by this time, and this is what needs to get done by this time. That also accelerates productivity. For example, I'm going to keep going back to that writing a book example. Today, I have 5 hours for the book. I have to finish the draft for chapter 1 by this hour. That also accelerates things. So it does not allow you to, it allows you to get really focused, but it doesn't allow you to start daydreaming and or get tempted to start going and checking social media, because you're like, oh shit, time is running out. And you're obviously going to have something else scheduled. So you will be forced. So you're going to have 2 or 3 time boxes where you're like, I got to do this. Then I got to answer my emails. I only have an hour. Then I got to do that. You will figure it out. You will not at the beginning. After a few weeks, you will get it done. For example, my emails over time, which is my last time batch of the day, usually, not always, most of the time is the very, very last one, have become shorter and shorter. More spelling error and more spelling error over time, where I've gotten to a point where sometimes people don't understand what I'm saying. Obviously, not in the context of when I have to be professional. I try to reread, etc., especially if it's external. But if it's my internal team or if it's like my friends, responding to emails, they're like, I don't even say hello, hi, how are you? Obviously, I've told them, guys, please don't get offended. I keep reminding them that's just because I'm busy. I'm trying to get back to everyone. I'm trying to get everything done in a day in my time box. So you will learn these things and you will adapt with people around you to be able to do that within time boxes. This is another hack. Ronzo,
It's
I
sort
don't
of
know if you
like,
do that.
yeah, no, and like you said, it's something I was doing. I guess I didn't know the lingo, but it's sort of like creating milestones within batching. Because if you just leave it open, I mean,
Nothing gets done.
and you don't, you also at that point might, like you said, rush the last bit of it, which could hurt, the quality of whatever it is that you're working on. So you need those, what I would call internally as like a pulse check, where you're just like, okay, where are we at? Where are we at with this? Okay, I'm kind of progressing, and then you look at the time. So it's internally creating milestones for you within a time batch.
Yeah, and you know
Makes
what?
sense.
This is, I mean, usually most people know how to set up a deadline for the entire project, but this is going backwards and putting deadlines within a day now when you're working on it.
Yeah,
So that's essentially what a time box is. And then within a day, what is my deadline to get X amount done to get to my eventual goal?
exactly.
Uh, Productivity hack number 3 was no multitasking allowed. And people do this a lot and they just don't even know it. I feel like half the people don't even realize they're doing this. It's like you're writing that book. Now the phone vibrates. But I put it on vibrate. It doesn't matter. It vibrated. You got distracted. And you're checking it. It's over. Right? So what do you do? Like, well, I need to have my phone. Well, no, you don't. You only probably need maybe one or two people in your life really need to be able to get in touch with you. And you could train them to say, hey, if it's emergency during these times, call. I have put a filter on my phone. It will ring if you call. If you text, etc., it's just I'm gonna assume it's actually the settings. Like I'm not even gonna know until the end of my day. Cool. That's it. But the hugest distraction is number one is phone. Number two is email. People leave emails, whether they're working on a desktop or whatever laptop, they leave emails open and the notification just keeps popping up every 10 seconds. Oh my God, that thing's so distracting. You think like, oh no, I'm used to it. No, you're not used to it. I don't know. I've not seen anyone get used to it. Maybe people will, but I think it's better to just prevent it. Number three distraction, in my opinion, that I've seen is, obsessively checking social media, like or news, or like something's got to happen. Nothing's going to happen. Especially during the day. People are going to be working. They're probably working. It's just like this BS news. Who cares? Those are the three distractors that I've seen the most. But multitasking could also be like, hey, I'm not doing all that, like no emails, no phone, none of that stuff. I'm very good. But I'm multitasking in a weird, different other way. I've actually combined two projects. I'm writing a book and preparing for the presentation. Well, no, that doesn't make sense. That you didn't understand time batching either. That's what that means.
But I will add, there are circumstances, and I know both you and I are notorious for this, where you get an idea in the
Oh,
middle
yeah,
of
you have to
something,
write it down. You have to write it down.
right? Or you utilize the like opportunity. Like I had that actually happen today where I was working on one thing and then realized that it could be connected to something else. So if anything, I was being efficient and utilizing and doing that. And I always say the 2-minute rule, if it could be done in 2 minutes in that time frame, and that's the only time you could do it, then it'll work. But I have seen where you could be strategic, I guess,
If
in
it's
your
connected,
approach.
I think that could
If
be
it's
possible.
connected, yeah.
If it's connected and it doesn't allow you to lose your train of thought, because if you go again, remember the 90 minutes, sorry, not 90 minutes, but usually around 30 minutes or so for the brain to be like, where the hell was I? If that,
Yeah.
if the flow is gone, then it's just over. It's like, it's like starting the day over. But yeah, you have to figure out when that makes sense. Number 4, do the hardest thing / big rocks. For you entrepreneurs, you probably have heard big rocks, little rocks, blah, 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 all that stuff. First, the most important thing, the hardest thing, the thing with the most impact, do it the minute you wake up before breakfast and your shower, if you can. If you can, it's okay. Eat your breakfast, have your shower, then do it. But make it the very, very, very first thing. Because your motivation is at its peak. Your mental capacity is at its peak. It doesn't matter what time of the day you wake up, by the way, just whatever your routine is, whether you wake up, I don't know, 2 p.m. in the afternoon or you wake up 4:30 in the morning, it doesn't matter. When you first wake up, do the hardest thing first, get that out of the way. And usually the hardest thing is the thing you don't want to do. It's the thing that you're outside of your comfort zone. Usually that's my signal. My internal signal is like, oh, I really don't want to do this. That is the thing you got to do first. That will help you remove all the other bottlenecks you have as an entrepreneur, or actually, as a manager, as an employee, whatever. It's, for example, for me, normally it's developing culture. Why is that the biggest thing? Because if I develop the right culture, people will know how to create the systems, which is my second thing, themselves, and how to hire the right people at the right time for the right things, which is my third biggest thing. But because hiring I can now do with my eyes closed, I never do it the first thing in the morning actually anymore. Before I used to. If you go back in time, like, I wasn't confident, I didn't know what I was doing. It was a very important skill for me to learn, which is very important if you're starting out as an entrepreneur. I don't anymore. I actually do it at the end of my day. And some people don't like it because it's not comfortable for them. I do get it. It's like hiring is hard if you're not comfortable. That's how I would do it. But Ranza, do you have a strategy to figure out what should be first in the morning or
Yeah,
whatever?
I think you touched up on it. I think it's a balance of the level of impact it has and also the level of effort that it takes. It's not necessarily the longest thing needs to go in the morning. Usually it's actually tedious administrative things I would obviously take long that could definitely be done with half my energy. But for me, it's anytime that it's like creating something, like if it really requires me to dig deep and produce something where we have nothing, or generate some sort of product that requires a multitude of steps that require even more effort. Again, doesn't matter how long it takes. I think for me, that's how I balance it. It's all in the impact of what I'm working on, because at the end of the day, what if, say, I get sick by the afternoon
Exactly.
and that day's a write-off?
Very important.
At least the beginning of the day I utilized for something that was very important in my sprint that week. So
that's why, you brought up a very good point. That's another thing, especially for me as the founder and CEO. My worry always is I like to start at like 4 or 5 a.m. It varies a little bit between those two. Why? Because I want to be able to do the most important thing before people wake up. So even if there is an emergency, they are not even up to voice their concern. They're just sleeping. Well, so I want to be done before people wake up. My very most important thing of the day. So that was a very valid point. Now, let's go to the next one. This is the fifth, or that was our bonus productivity hack. This has really helped me out, which actually goes back to one of those multitasking things. It's going to eliminate that, eliminating distractions. So what do I call distractions? I call literally almost any type of meeting a distraction. So I don't like meetings at all. One, two, if I have meetings, it's end of the day. I could do meetings with my eyes closed. So I don't need to be like, most meetings, I'm generalizing. Most of them don't need to be, some people say, oh, not before noon. I say not before 4 p.m. Why noon? You're done doing your stuff? Great job. Are you like Jeff Bezos? I don't think so. So push it down to like 4, 3, 2 p.m. at least. Checking my phone. I don't check my phone. Like, I got my phone here right now. It's on silent. It's always on silent and not vibrate. And the screen is down like this. So if somebody calls, I cannot even see the light come on. So how do you get in touch with me? If you're a person of importance, you're in a category where I have spoken to you that if it's really urgent, you call, it will ring. And it will only do that for certain people. Like everybody has that setting. We always talk about that. You can do that with your own family, friends that are like really have to have you for emergency contact. I don't check social media at all. I don't check emails at all until end of the day, 3, 4, whatever it is, depending on the day. Ranza, any other things that are like super distracting?
Well, first I wanted to say you're actually one of those people for me. So if you call me,
Oh
I'm
man.
gonna get that call. No, I mean you discussed the main points. I think for me, I would say technology, like we live in like an overstimulated world. Like that's just how we are. It's like sensory overload, news, updates, like it's just constantly in our face. So I do realize that for some people it's hard to slow it down. And I also realize that for some people, it could very much be a part of their job. So that's
Yes.
one thing that I think we could talk about too, is how do you navigate a job that exposes you to lots of distractions? Like, for example, if you're recruiting online, how do you avoid not
Social
clicking on
media.
an article or social media or getting lost in like someone's profile and then be like, what was I doing again? Like, I guess I'm kind of posing that question to you, Bruce, because I think that's a great topic to actually bounce off what we
So
just
I think
mentioned.
for if you're like, let's say, you're recruiting on, let's say, LinkedIn, and so now all of a sudden you're on LinkedIn. The only way you could escape those other sort of pulls from the distraction on LinkedIn, let's say, is develop that discipline. Hey, I'm not gonna
Yeah.
do anything. I'm just here for recruiting. I'm not looking at anything. I don't care. I don't care about those notifications. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. That's it. Discipline, discipline, discipline. Eventually you'll get used to it.
And time boxing,
Time boxing.
right? Like,
I
hey, I have only 1 hour.
exactly. And you got 1 hour, you gotta go to the next thing. That's gonna I send a screenshot of my phone and then I have 32,000 emails I have not
It gave
answered.
me a heart attack.
Eventually,
Like,
eventually things become unimportant. Like literally you realize how unimportant they were. Like, do you think 32,000 people, or it's not 32,000 people, it could be like the same person maybe sending 1,000 emails over the span of whatever amount of time since I've had my phone. But if it was important, they would have. I've probably talked to them in some other context, something else. But it tells you most stuff are not important. Definitely not important to check on your phone. I may have
yeah,
checked most of those emails on like my desktop or laptop, or when it's my designated office to check emails where I got my. But I don't want to do it over my phone because that is not for me. And this is like very different for me when I have my phone during the business hours. Is like if emergency call, certain people can call, great, or I can get in touch with my team. But if I'm not working, I don't want to check work emails. So people say work-life balance. I'm like, well, that's your responsibilities. For how do I do it as an entrepreneur? I'm probably more busy than the average person, and I completely enjoy it. But I still have like to shut off sometimes. How do I do that? I was like, I'm never gonna check if work emails on my phone. You see, that's how I'm batching now my time, even
yeah.
for fun. I don't want to check it because it's not important right now. I'm having fun. I have my phone; it's my personal phone. I don't want to check. That's it.
No, that's a great point. And I think that could even be categorized under um a different heading on its own, Bruce, with productivity is knowing when to log off. And
That's
and
another
I've
batch. It's a
a
batch, a
hundred
very important
percent
batch.
I
I
know
got a batch.
for yeah.
I'm going to interrupt you. Sorry, I'll let you continue, but this was very, very, very important. I'm glad you brought this up. I have a batch for exercise. I got a batch to eat. I got a batch to have fun. I usually, my fun is because like I'm mostly like my fun is what? Like I just like to have a nice dinner. That's it. That's batched
Will
into
you
my,
bike ride?
that's it. Right?
Yeah. No,
Uh, Come on,
that's a
Rania,
great
that's gonna be
point. That's something that I actually used to coach our students on, especially when they're really struggling with balancing everything, is I just used to say color code and put everything in your calendar of when you're studying, when you're in school, when you're eating, when you're exercising, when you want to have a social life and color code it. Like, I know it sounds crazy, it's over planning, but at least you could
It is
see
tough.
it.
At the end of the day, our assumption was that the viewers want to do things of importance and massive
Yeah.
scale. If you want to do that, it's hard. Yes, it is hard, but this will make it a lot easier. You're still gonna have your work-life balance. I always make fun of that, but I think this actually gives us a topic for another time to explain why I make fun of it.
Yeah.
Because it's more
I'd
like,
love to
or I
know.
feel like it's organizational skills. It's nothing
Yeah.
to do with like, well,
And mindset.
Say
right?
again?
Mindset, like
Mindset,
how we
yeah.
approach our week and our schedule and our projects.
Yeah.
Sometimes the burning out happens long before even doing it. It's just like how we mentally burn out, like the idea of that I have to do X, Y, and Z. I'm already anxious. My own energy is already depleted. But that's, like you said, another time. But I wanted just to add a little bit more to the logging off piece that's helped me with productivity is turning off that, because I'm naturally a very anxious person of I need to complete all of this. I was very much, I need to respond to every email before I log off, because if I didn't, I don't know why. But that actually hurt my productivity. Not only was I not making the best decisions in the emails, but I was replying back saying, I'll get back to you, which now just meant I had another follow-up to do. And that person now got another email from me. So it just
Okay.
hurt it just
Thanks so
hurts
much.
productivity. Yeah. Like it's just some things you get to a point where you know it could just wait. And I think that does help your productivity also.
Yeah, this was very good. This was very good. It gave me back my discipline, whatever I had forgotten. I think it's a good reminder. I'm hoping our audience is gonna get something out of this as well. If you did, and you enjoyed this as much as we enjoyed making it for you, go ahead and share it with a friend. Subscribe on whatever social media channel you're watching this. And of course, if you have any questions, and this is a social media channel that allows you to ask questions, go ahead and ask him in the comment section, and hopefully we'll talk to you next time. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks everyone. Bye-bye.